Caleb had been counting down to this trip the way a child counts down to Christmas morning. For 10 years, he'd lived between hope and exhaustion in the United States, fighting immigration battles, juggling jobs, missing home, missing culture, missing moments that would never come twice. And now, for the first time in a decade, he had everything he needed to return: a valid American passport, a ticket home, a heart eager to reconnect with every piece of himself he had left behind. He wheeled his luggage towards the airport gate, excitement practically lifting his steps off the ground. He felt light, lighter than he had felt in years. Going home wasn't just a trip, it was healing. Beside him stood Tracy, his wife, trying desperately to hide the storm inside her. She watched him with searching eyes, her fingers brushing anxiously against the strap of her handbag. "Baby," she said softly, "are you sure this is the right time to travel?" Caleb chuckled. "Tracy, when is ever the right time? I haven't been home in a decade." "I know, but..." She shook her head, struggling to articulate the weight pressing on her heart. "I just feel something. I don't know what it is." He stepped closer and placed both hands on her arms. "Nothing is wrong," he assured her. "I have been waiting for this season for too long. Let me go and see my family, celebrate Christmas with them, and come back." "But you will call me every day?" she whispered. "I will, I promise." She forced a smile, but her eyes didn't brighten. Something about this trip didn't sit right in her spirit. The uneasiness lingered like an unwelcome shadow she couldn't explain. Still, she hugged him and held on longer than usual. The boarding announcement echoed through the airport. "Go well," she whispered. He kissed her forehead. "I'll be back before you know it." And with that, he turned, lifted his bag, and walked towards the gate. His excitement was so strong that it swallowed a quiet warning in Tracy's chest. Caleb's smile widened the moment he stepped out of the airport in Lagos. The hot air, the noise, the scent, everything felt like a familiar song. He stayed the night in a hotel, unable to sleep well because of the adrenaline rushing through him. By morning, he boarded a local flight to the eastern part of the country and then took a hired car straight to his village. The roads were lined with Christmas decorations, handmade paper stars, strings of colored bulbs. Children ran around with firecrackers. Everywhere smelled like celebration. When the driver entered his father's compound, Caleb's heartbeat raised. There, sitting on a wooden chair outside the house, was his father. The old man's eyes widened and his mouth trembled. Before Caleb could even process anything, his father stood up, slowly at first, then faster, and moved towards him. Caleb didn't wait. He jumped out of the car and ran straight into his father's arms. "Daddy!" he breathed, voice thick with emotion. My son," the old man whispered, hugging him tightly. "You finally came home." Neither of them spoke for a long while. The hug said everything. By evening, the entire village knew Caleb had returned. People came from every corner carrying gifts, smiles, and stories. Children peeked shyly, giggling when he waved. "American citizen, you have come back with dollars. Welcome home." Caleb laughed and hugged everyone, handing out money, taking pictures, chatting endlessly. He felt like a king returning from exile. And his father? He smiled all through, proudly introducing his son over and over. The next morning, Caleb woke up to the smell of fried meats and the sound of Christmas songs blaring from an old radio. His siblings arrived from the city later that day, shouting his name, laughing uncontrollably, hugging him repeatedly, taking photos. It felt like old times. No worries, no pressure, just family and warmth. They cooked big meals. They decorated the compound with lights. They cracked jokes till tears rolled down their cheeks. They danced to old songs under the moonlight. For once, Caleb forgot about America entirely. He felt whole. He felt at peace. He felt at home. Christmas passed in a blur of joy. New Year arrived with fireworks, laughter, and celebration. It was the happiest he had felt in years. After New Year celebrations, things began to normalize. His siblings packed their bags and returned to their various cities. Extended family members returned to work. The village calmed down, and Caleb stayed. He didn't park. He didn't check his ticket. He didn't mention returning to the US. His siblings asked casually, "Guy, when are you going back?" He smiled. "Soon." But soon kept stretching. Days became weeks. Weeks became a month. A month became 3. And yet, he showed no sign of leaving. He followed his father to the farm, walked around the village like he had lived there all his life. At first, Tracy thought he was just enjoying home. But when he kept postponing, her worry grew. She called him. He said, "Soon." She called again. He said, "Soon." She tried to push for details. He ended the call abruptly. Caleb's behavior became more unusual without looking supernatural. He stopped calling anyone. He avoided conversations about leaving. He blocked his siblings whenever they asked about his return. He only unblocked people when he wanted to talk. The more time he spent in the village, the more peaceful he felt. Too peaceful, almost unnaturally peaceful. But he didn't question it. One quiet afternoon, he was walking back from his shop when an elderly prophet stopped him on the road. "Son," the man said, squinting, "I see you wearing a white garment." Caleb frowned. "White garment? What does that mean?" "I'm not sure," the prophet replied honestly. "Maybe it means you're called into the prophetic, to become a prophet, or chosen for something." Caleb rolled his eyes. "Please, don't give me that. I am not called for anything. Never, never a prophet." The prophet nodded slowly, unbothered. Caleb walked away, irritated. By the time Caleb's 4th month in the village slipped in, even he had stopped counting days. What was supposed to be a 1-month Christmas trip had stretched into something vague, something strange, yet something that felt natural to him. He wasn't in a hurry. He wasn't thinking of America. He wasn't missing his wife. He woke up every morning to the sound of roosters crowing, children laughing, and his father calling him from the veranda. "Caleb, breakfast is ready." It felt peaceful, too peaceful for a man who once lived in the constant hustle of New York. He followed his father to the farm daily, cut down cassava stems, sat under mango trees while villagers greeted him endlessly. Some joked, and he would laugh heartily. But while Caleb thought life was finally giving him rest, people outside the village began to panic, especially Tracy. Every morning, she woke up checking her phone for his message. Every night, she slept with the phone on loud volume right beside her ear. Most days, he didn't call. When she called him, he answered with that now familiar line, "I'll be back soon." But soon had become a meaningless echo. Half the time, she felt like she was speaking to a stranger. At first, she complained gently, "Baby, at least tell me what date your return ticket says." He would laugh it off. "Don't worry, I'll handle it." The longer Caleb stayed in the village, the more people whispered. They whispered in corners, especially the elderly women who sold vegetables at the market. Why hasn't he gone back? Maybe his papers are expired. Maybe he doesn't have money to return. Or he quarreled with his wife. Or he has found a village girl. Some rumors grew wild. Maybe he was deported and is ashamed to say. Maybe he ran from police in America. Or he's cursed. Caleb heard those whispers. He laughed at them carelessly. One man asked boldly one day, "Caleb, when exactly are you going back?" "Are you chasing me?" Caleb replied, still smiling, "This is my home." The man left, but the answer spread through the village like wildfire. Confusion became anxiety. Anxiety became frustration. Frustration became desperation. One night, Tracy dropped her phone on the bed and cried so much her chest hurt. This is not normal. Something is wrong. She knelt beside the bed and prayed deeply from a place of brokenness she didn't even know she had. Lord, open my eyes. If something is happening to him, show me. I don't know what else to do. That night, she had a dream. She saw Caleb and his father walking slowly on a quiet path, hand in hand. No words, no emotions, no explanation. She woke up trembling. She brushed it off as just a dream. But when the dream repeated the next night and then again the night after, her heart stopped treating it as random. She prayed again. The more she prayed, the more the dream repeated. Finally, one night, overwhelmed and exhausted, she said, God, please, speak plainly. I don't understand what you are showing me. Her voice cracked. Tears soaked her pillow. Then she heard it. A quiet voice, firm, clear. Caleb is in the grip of his father. Her eyes flew open. Her heart pounded in her chest. What does that mean? She whispered. But the answer did not come again. Meanwhile, Caleb was becoming more detached from his old life. Something deep inside him was changing. Slowly, gradually, silently. He had no interest in checking his bank account, confirming his leads, speaking to his wife, replying emails, returning to work, or even checking what month it was. His siblings noticed. They called him. He replied with one-word answers. If they tried to ask when he was returning, he would lie. Soon. If they insisted, he would snap. Why are you people disturbing me? Then he would hang up. It didn't make sense. This was Caleb, the responsible one, the focused one, the family-oriented one. But his mind was no longer functioning the same way. He moved around the village like someone whose entire sense of urgency had evaporated. He spent hours sitting under a mango tree with old men, listening to stories he didn't even understand. He no longer felt any desire for anything serious. It was as if something had pulled a curtain over his mind. Yet on the surface, everything looked normal. He wasn't acting possessed. He wasn't sick. He wasn't violent. He wasn't mentally unstable. He was simply absent, but present, physically alive, emotionally unavailable, mentally disconnected. It was subtle, very subtle. Subtle enough for him not to notice anything was wrong. Subtle enough for others to think he was just enjoying the village. By the ninth month, Tracy was spiritually and emotionally drained. She finally called a close friend and poured out her heart. I have prayed and prayed, and the only thing God said is Caleb is in the grip of his father. But I don't know what that means. Her friend listened quietly, then said, only God can reveal the meaning. Keep praying. If something is hidden, God will expose it. Tracy pulled her knees to her chest and cried silently. I feel so alone. She didn't know whether Caleb was ignoring her intentionally or if something deeper was happening. The silence from God after the initial message made her even more confused. Yet, she kept praying, but her strength was fading. A year passed, and Caleb remained in the village, his marriage hanging by a thread, his connection to reality fading. He did not call Tracy consistently. Sometimes he called once in 3 months, sometimes never, and then he blocked her completely. No calls, no text, no communication again. Tracy felt abandoned, broken, confused, angry. She stopped praying for him. 2 years later, she decided to move on. If a man leaves you for 2 years with no explanation, then you are not married. She told herself this fiercely just to survive the emotional damage. The dream stopped, the prayer stopped, and her hope died gradually. When a man named Kelvin approached her and showed genuine interest, she didn't reject him. She felt justified. She felt released. She felt alone and needed companionship. Then they began talking, slowly, cautiously. Caleb had become a full village champion. He stopped wearing his expensive clothes, walked around in slippers, ate from local pots, sat by the roadside with elders. Nothing about him resembled the man who once lived in a bustling foreign city. He wasn't bothered. He wasn't restless. He wasn't afraid of time passing. His father looked calm. Villagers assumed Caleb had chosen to settle at home permanently. Everything appeared normal and harmless, but deep down, beneath all the normalcy, something was terribly wrong. Caleb just didn't know it yet. One quiet evening, Caleb was on his way back from a wedding ceremony when he ran into a different prophet. This one was younger, sharper, and far more intense. The man stared at him for a long moment, too long. "You," he said, "stop." Caleb frowned. "Do I know you?" "No, but I know what I see." The man's eyes didn't blink. "I see you wearing a white garment." Caleb groaned. "Not again. What is wrong with all of you?" The prophet stepped closer. "You don't belong here. Not like this. Not the way you think." Caleb stiffened. A strange discomfort crawled in his stomach. "What do you mean?" he asked. "That you will understand soon," the prophet said slowly. "But first," he held Caleb's gaze. "You are not fully yourself." Caleb's expression changed. "What are you talking about?" The prophet didn't answer. He simply said, "Come tomorrow. Come to my church over there if you want clarity." He walked away, leaving Caleb standing alone on the dusty village path, confused and uneasy. That night, for the first time since he arrived in the village, Caleb could not sleep. Something about the young pastor's words wouldn't leave his mind. "You are not fully yourself." He sat up on the bed, worried. He woke up the next morning feeling unusually settled. It wasn't fear or anxiety. It was something more confusing, like a tiny crack that opened inside him. And through that crack, a strange awareness was slipping in. He sat at the edge of the bed. He rubbed his face, trying to shake off the heaviness. What did that prophet mean by, "You are not fully yourself"? He whispered to no one. He didn't have an answer. His father called from outside, breaking his thoughts. "Caleb, come and eat." Caleb pushed the thought aside, got up, and walked out of the room. But something inside him was no longer fully at peace. Something had shifted. Caleb didn't intend to return to the prophet's church. He had no desire to listen to spiritual talk. He had grown comfortable in the simplicity of the village and didn't want anyone ruining it with mysterious warnings. But as the day passed, the words kept echoing in his mind. "You are not fully yourself. Come if you want clarity." By afternoon, he couldn't shake it anymore. Something he could not explain kept urging him towards the church. It wasn't curiosity, it was fear, a pull he couldn't resist. So, late in the afternoon, Caleb began walking towards the pastor's small church on the outskirts of the village. But the prophet standing at the door wasn't ordinary. He looked at Caleb like he had been expecting him. "You came," the prophet said quietly. Caleb swallowed. "What do you want to tell me?" "Come inside," the prophet said. "We need to talk privately." Inside the church, the prophet shut the door gently and faced him squarely. "Caleb," he began, "you don't know me, but God has been showing me your matter." Caleb frowned. "What matter?" The prophet didn't answer directly. Instead, he said, "When did you come home?" "December." Caleb replied automatically. "Which December?" Caleb blinked. "Last December now." The prophet's eyes softened with pity. "No," he said quietly. "You came home 3 Christmases ago." Caleb's breath caught. "What? You have been in the village for 3 years, not one." Caleb almost laughed. "That's impossible. I came last year. I remember everything clearly." The prophet shook his head. "Your mind is not seeing time correctly. The longer you stayed, the deeper you sank." Caleb stepped back, suddenly feeling dizzy. Why would I stay here for 3 years? Why would I abandon my life in the US? Why wouldn't I know? The prophet took a breath. "Because you are not in control of your decisions." Fear pricked the edge of Caleb's chest. "What do you mean I'm not in control?" "There are forces that influence choices," he said slowly. "Forces that shift desires. Forces that cloud judgment. Forces that change people without making noise." Caleb swallowed hard. "You mean like manipulation?" "Yes," the prophet said. "A manipulation that didn't start now. It began the very day you stepped into this village." Caleb frowned deeply. "But I didn't see anything." Nothing unusual happened. You think nothing happened, the prophet said, because everything looked normal, nothing dramatic, nothing alarming or spiritual on the surface. He paused. But something happened the day you arrived, and it has controlled you ever since. Caleb leaned forward. What thing? The prophet studied him for a moment. I'll show you, he said softly, but it will shock you. The prophet stood up gently, walked to the front of the small church, and closed his eyes. He whispered a short prayer. Then he turned to Caleb with a deeper expression, an expression that seemed to see past Caleb's face and into a place Caleb himself had never looked. Your life didn't pause, the prophet said. It was redirected. Caleb shook his head slowly. Redirected by who? For what? The prophet inhaled deeply. Your father. Caleb's body went rigid. What about my father? He demanded sharply. He loves you, the prophet said truthfully. But he belongs to something older than love, something older than choice. Caleb stared, unblinking. You are the chosen one among your siblings, the prophet continued. Chosen to carry what he carries, chosen to replace him when his time ends. Caleb shook his head violently. Replace him in what? In a brotherhood, an ancient one, an ancestral one, a secret one. Caleb felt the ground beneath him tilt slightly. My father is not in any brotherhood, he said stubbornly. He is a simple man. The prophet didn't argue. He simply said, when you came home for Christmas, he had one goal: keep you here long enough for the process to begin. Caleb's palm grew sweaty. Process? Initiation. Caleb's heart slammed heavily. He felt heat crawl up in his neck. You're lying, he snapped. I wish I were, the prophet said calmly, but you will understand when I tell you how it started. He paused for a moment. Do you remember where you slept the night you arrived? Caleb nodded slowly. Yes, in my father's room, on his bed. That, the prophet said, was the first step of the initiation. Caleb blinked rapidly, confusion flooding him. What are you talking about? It was just a bed. I was tired. He was emotional. It meant nothing. To you, the prophet corrected. But to him and to the brotherhood, it meant everything. Caleb felt his throat tightening. What exactly did sleeping on that bed do? It created a spiritual connection, the prophet said. A binding, a surrender of your will, a subtle alignment of your spirit to theirs. Caleb shook his head again. No, that doesn't make sense. It felt normal that day. Exactly, the prophet replied, because the manipulation wasn't forceful. It was gentle. It simply planted a seed, one that grew every day you stayed. The prophet stepped closer. Every morning you woke up feeling at home. Every time you said you didn't want to return to the US. Every time you blocked your wife. Every time you lost interest in your goals. He paused. That wasn't you. Caleb's breathing grew shallow. Something inside him broke open. Fear, realization, disbelief, all merging into one. The prophet's voice softened. I didn't want to get involved in this matter. The battle attached to it is not small. They will fight me for helping you. They will come for me. Caleb looked at him with wide eyes. Then, why did you call me? The prophet closed his eyes briefly. Because I heard the Spirit say, help him, and I could not resist. Caleb lowered his gaze, confusion mixing with a strange feeling of vulnerability. But I don't understand all this, the prophet exhaled. You were chosen because your father's time is almost up, and someone must replace him. Among all these children, you are the one with the strongest spirit, the one with destiny, the one they wanted. You're the chosen one. Caleb felt like his chest was being squeezed. Replace him in what exactly? He whispered. The prophet hesitated, measuring his word. A cult, don't you get it? He said finally. An occultic brotherhood that had existed in your bloodline for generations. Caleb's jaw dropped. My father? His voice came out cracked. My own father is involved in something like that? The prophet nodded slowly. His father initiated him, and now his own time is ending. And when that day comes, they need you to replace him. Caleb felt faint. He took a shaky step backward. Everything inside him screamed, no, 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 no. But the dots began to connect. The unnatural peace, the lack of urgency, the disinterest in returning, the way he blocks people without reason, the inability to notice time passing, the strange pull to stay. It all began to make terrible sense. This can't be real, he whispered, but deep inside, something told him it was. The prophet looked at Caleb with seriousness so heavy, the air in the room thickened. You are not supposed to know any of this, he said, but you have obtained mercy. From who? Caleb whispered. From God through your wife. Her prayers kept exposing your matter to God, and when she didn't understand her dreams, her consistency made heaven intervene. Caleb felt a lump in his throat. Caleb, listen to me carefully. Next month, they plan to complete the initiation, and after that, you will never be able to leave this village again. All your life will remain in this village from now till death. Caleb's heart stopped. You must escape, the prophet said, before they finished what they started. Suddenly, the pastor clutched his chest, gasping. He staggered backward as though something invisible had struck him. A sharp pain slid through him. He pressed his hand to the ground, breathing heavily. Caleb rushed forward. What's happening to you? The prophet's voice came out strained and weak. They know I told you. His hand shook violently as he pointed at the door. Leave now. Leave. He groaned. They have started attacking. Caleb froze. Go, the prophet shouted. Caleb grabbed the door and fled into the evening light. Heart pounding, mind racing, the truth echoing painfully in his ears. He had been in the village for 3 years. He was not himself. He was being prepared, and the clock was ticking.